I thought I was bringing my husband a surprise coffee at his office, but the real surprise was finding his entire floor dark and a security guard who casually detonated my perfectly happy life. The rich, aromatic scent of lamb, Rogan Josh, filled our small apartment, a fragrant cloud of cardamom, cloves, and turmeric that always signaled a special occasion. Tonight, the occasion was simply Tuesday, or at least it was supposed to be. I swirled a wooden spoon through the thick ruby red sauce, humming along to the soft jazz playing from the speaker on the counter. Mark loved my Rogan Josh. He called it his reset button, the one meal that could wash away the stress of a long week at the architecture firm. He'd be home in 20 minutes, and I had everything perfect. The curry simmering, the basmati rice steaming, and a bottle of his favorite Malbec breathing on the table. We were that couple, the disgustingly happy one, high school sweethearts who'd actually made it work. We communicated, we compromised, we still left silly notes for each other. After 12 years together, 5 of them married, I still got a little flutter in my stomach when I heard his keys in the lock. I believed with every fiber of my being that we were solid, unbreakable, a fortress built on a foundation of trust and shared history. My phone buzzed on the granite countertop, right on cue. I smiled, wiping my hands on my apron as I picked it up. Mark's picture, a goofy selfie from our trip to Italy last summer, beamed back at me. "Hey, you," I answered, leaning against the counter. "Hope you're hungry because I went all out." A beat of silence, then a sigh. "Oh, Clara, honey, I'm so sorry." The smile on my face faltered. "Sorry? What's wrong?" "It's this Henderson project," he said, his voice laced with a familiar, weary frustration. "The client threw a wrench in the works at the last minute. We've got to redraw half the schematics before the presentation tomorrow morning. It's an all-hands-on-deck situation. I'm going to be here for hours." Disappointment pricked at me, sharp and unwelcome. Oh, okay. I tried to keep my voice light. "Well, that's a bummer. Are you sure? I made your favorite." The words sounded childish, even to my own ears. "I know, baby, and I'm gutted. Seriously, I can practically smell it from here." He chuckled, but it sounded thin, stretched. "I'll be lucky if I get out of here before midnight. Don't wait up for me, okay? Just save me a plate." "Of course," I said, my earlier enthusiasm deflating like a balloon. "Okay, well, be safe. I love you. I love you more. Gotta go. Henderson is breathing down my neck. Bye." The line clicked dead. I stared at my phone for a long moment, the silence of the apartment suddenly deafening. The jazz music now seemed mocking, the rich smell of the curry almost nauseating. I turned off the stove and slowly began to portion the food into containers, one for my sad, solitary dinner and one for his eventual return. As I worked, a tiny nagging thought surfaced. I'd seen the Henderson project timeline on his desk calendar just yesterday. It was marked in bright red. Final drafts due last Friday. He'd been so relieved to have it off his plate. I shook my head, chastising myself. Clients change their minds. That's the business. Mark was a hard worker, a perfectionist. Of course he'd stay to fix it. Doubting him felt like a betrayal. I ate my dinner in front of the TV, the vibrant flavors tasting like ash in my mouth. By 9 p.m., the restlessness was unbearable. The apartment felt too small, the silence too loud. I missed him. That's when the idea sparked. It was a silly, romantic gesture, the kind of thing we used to do when we were first dating. I'd bring him a care package, his favorite, ridiculously expensive coffee from the 24-hour cafe downtown, a warm croissant, and a kiss to get him through the late night. The thought of surprising him, of seeing the tired gratitude on his face, was enough to propel me into action. I changed out of my sweatpants, threw on a jacket, and grabbed my car keys, a genuine smile returning to my face for the first time in hours. The drive downtown was quick, the late-night traffic sparse. I picked up the coffee and pastries, the warm bag filling my car with the comforting scent of roasted beans and butter. Pulling up to his office building, a sleek, imposing tower of glass and steel, I felt a renewed flutter of excitement. I pictured myself getting buzzed up by a grateful colleague, tiptoeing to his desk and seeing his face light up. The lobby was vast, silent and gleaming under cold, recessed lighting. A lone security guard sat behind a marble desk, scrolling through his phone. He looked up as I approached, his expression a mixture of boredom and surprise. "Evening, ma'am," he said, his voice echoing slightly in the cavernous space. "Can I help you?" "Hi," I said, holding up the bag with a cheerful smile. "I'm just dropping something off for my husband, Mark Collier. He's with the architecture firm on the 11th floor. He's working late on the Henderson project." The guard, a kindly-looking older man with a name tag that read Frank, frowned. He tapped a few keys on his computer, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Collier, you said? On 11? "That's right." He swiveled the monitor toward me. It showed a grid of security camera feeds. "Well, ma'am, I don't know what to tell you. The entire 11th floor has been dark for hours. Look." He pointed to a black square on the grid labeled FL11 hallway. "Power saving mode. Kicks in 30 minutes after the last person clocks out. According to my logs, the last employee from that firm left at 5:47 p.m. The smile froze on my face. The warm bag in my hand suddenly felt heavy, absurd. "No, that can't be right. He called me. He's up there right now with his whole team. It's a big deadline." Frank gave me a look of weary pity, the kind you give to someone who clearly doesn't have all the information. "Ma'am, I've been sitting right here since 4 o'clock. Nobody's gone up to that floor, and nobody's up there. The whole office is empty. Has been all night." He turned the screen back around, his point made, and went back to his phone, his duty done. The air rushed out of my lungs. Empty. The word ricocheted around the silent lobby, around the inside of my skull. Empty. The coffee I was holding turned to ice water in my veins. The fluorescent lights seemed to hum with a malevolent energy, buzzing and mocking me. He wasn't here. He wasn't working. He had looked me in the eye this morning, kissed me goodbye, and promised me the world. And now he had lied. A simple, blatant lie confirmed by a bored security guard who had no idea he'd just detonated my entire life. I stumbled back out into the cold night air, the automatic glass doors sighing shut behind me. I got into my car, the bag with the coffee and croissant sitting on the passenger seat like an unwanted passenger. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely put the key in the ignition. Where was he? If he wasn't here, where in God's name was he? As I pulled away from the curb, my phone lit up, vibrating against the center console. It was him. A text message popped up on the screen, his goofy picture smiling next to it. "Just taking a quick break. This project is a killer. Can't wait to be home with you. Counting the minutes." A wave of nausea washed over me, so intense I had to pull over. The lie wasn't just a lie, it was an elaborate performance. He was actively maintaining the fiction right at this very moment. My thumb hovered over the screen, trembling. My mind was a blank, white static, except for one screaming question. Who was he with? Before I could process the thought, the screen changed. He was calling me. His name flashed, insistent, demanding a response. I stared at it, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The loving wife would answer with a warm, encouraging voice. But I wasn't her anymore. I was someone else now, a stranger in my own skin, sitting in a cold car on a dark street, holding a phone call from a man who was living a completely different life. I took a shaky breath, my world tilting on its axis, and pressed the green button. "Hey," I said, my voice coming out surprisingly steady, a calm island in the swirling chaos of my mind. "Is everything okay?" A ridiculous question. Nothing was okay. Nothing might ever be okay again. Yeah, fine," he answered, his voice a little breathless. In the background I could hear a faint clinking sound like glasses and a low murmur of indistinct chatter. Not the sounds of a quiet, stressed-out architecture firm. It sounded social. Just needed to hear your voice. This is brutal. Henderson is a nightmare client. You know how he is. Wants the moon on a stick. I know, I said, the words tasting like poison. Each syllable of his lie was a physical blow. I clutched the steering wheel, my knuckles white. Well, I'm proud of you for working so hard. The phrase came out automatically, a relic from a life I was living just 30 minutes ago. It felt grotesque. Thanks, honey. That means a lot. He paused. I could almost picture him, running a hand through his hair, feigning exhaustion. Listen, I should probably get back to it. Just wanted to check in. I'll text you when I'm heading out, but seriously, don't wait up. Okay, I managed. Be safe. Always. Love you. Love you too, I whispered to the dead air after he'd hung up. I sat in the car for a full 5 minutes, the engine off, the silence broken only by the frantic thumping of my own heart. The world outside my windshield, the streetlights, the passing cars, the distant city glow, looked unreal, like a movie set. I was the star of a tragedy I hadn't even auditioned for. The drive home was an out-of-body experience. I navigated the familiar streets on autopilot, my mind racing, replaying every conversation, every interaction we'd had for the past week, the past month. I was searching for cracks, for inconsistencies I'd missed. His phone angled away from me on the couch, the sudden need to take a walk and clear his head after dinner a few nights ago, the new password on his laptop that he'd brushed off as a new company security policy. Each memory was a small, sharp piece of glass, and they were all coming together to form a mosaic of betrayal that was horrifyingly clear. When I walked back into our apartment, the scent of the Rogan Josh hit me like a physical assault. The cozy, loving atmosphere I had so carefully cultivated now felt like a suffocating lie. I saw everything through a new, hideous filter. The framed photo of us on the mantelpiece, laughing on our wedding day, a mockery. The 2 wine glasses on the table, a cruel joke. I walked straight to the kitchen, scraped both my plate and his into the trash. The sound of the rich curry plopping into the bin, feeling violently final. I couldn't just sit. I couldn't just wait for him to come home, smelling of perfume that wasn't mine, and feed me more stories. I needed proof. I needed something tangible to hold on to, something to prove I wasn't going insane. My heart hammered as I walked into our bedroom. It felt like a violation, a trespass into a space that had always been sacred. But he had desecrated it first. His wallet was on the dresser, right where he always left it next to his watch. My hands trembled as I picked up the worn leather. I had bought it for him for our 3rd anniversary. I opened it. The familiar smell of leather and him filled my nostrils, and a fresh wave of grief washed over me. I pushed it down, replacing it with a cold, hard anger. Tucked behind his driver's license and a few stray business cards was a folded receipt. It was crisp, new. My fingers fumbled as I unfolded it. It was from a restaurant. The Gilded Sparrow. I'd never heard of it. I pulled out my phone, my thumbs moving with shaky speed. A quick search showed me it was on the other side of town, a notoriously expensive, romantic spot known for its private booths and hushed atmosphere. It was nowhere near his office. It was nowhere near our home. It was a place you took someone to impress them, to seduce them. The timestamp was from less than 2 hours ago. 7:14 p.m., dinner for 2, a bottle of champagne, 2 orders of the pan-seared scallops. So that was the Henderson project. Scallops and champagne. The air left my lungs in a ragged gasp. I sank onto the edge of our bed, the receipt clutched in my hand. It was real. This was happening. It wasn't a misunderstanding, but the receipt was just a symptom. I needed to know the disease. I needed a name. My gaze fell on his laptop, sitting closed on his desk in the corner. His new password. For a moment, I felt defeated. But then I remembered. Last week, he'd logged in while I was standing behind him, and I'd seen his hands move across the keyboard. It was a pattern, not a random jumble, and he was a creature of habit. I remembered the date he'd been so excited about. The groundbreaking for his first solo design project, Airweight Mars 16. My breath hitched as I typed it in. The screen flickered and unlocked, opening to his desktop. I felt a surge of adrenaline, a nauseating mix of triumph and terror. I didn't know what I was looking for. Emails? Messages? My eyes scanned the screen, and then I saw it. His calendar was open, minimized at the bottom of the screen. I clicked on it. The week was filled with his usual work appointments and reminders. But then I saw today's date. There was an entry for 7 p.m. It wasn't labeled Henderson meeting or work dinner. It was a simple, intimate entry, an event that stretched for 3 hours. The title made the world stop turning. It consisted of 2 words and a single, damning letter. Our anniversary, K. Our anniversary, K. The words floated in front of my eyes, stark and clinical on the glowing screen. Our anniversary. But our anniversary was in May, a warm, sunny day we always spent hiking. This was October. This was someone else's anniversary, and that someone else was K. The initial K was a punch to the gut. It was anonymous and yet sickeningly specific. My mind started to race, flicking through an internal Rolodex of every woman we knew whose name started with a K. Catherine from his office? No, she was happily married with 3 kids. Kelly, my old college roommate? Impossible. She lived in another state. The letter hung there, a symbol of a whole secret life he had built behind my back. An anniversary. That implied time, history. This wasn't a one-night mistake. This was a relationship, a parallel life. I clicked through his calendar, going back weeks, then months. It was all there, a meticulously documented history of his affair, hidden in plain sight. Every late night at the office corresponded with a calendar entry. Drinks with K, dinner, K. There was even one from a month ago labeled Weekend Getaway, K, which perfectly aligned with the boys' fishing trip he had supposedly taken with his colleagues. I remembered packing his bag for him, making sure he had his favorite flannel shirt and extra wool socks, feeling a pang of wifely pride. Now the memory curdled in my stomach, turning into a sour, bitter acid. He hadn't been shivering in a boat on some remote lake. He'd been in a cozy hotel room with her. With Kay, I felt a cold, sharp clarity settle over me, pushing the grief and shock into a neat, locked box for later. The hurt was a roaring fire, but the anger was the ice forming around it, giving me a sense of purpose. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to smash his things. I was going to find out who she was. I closed the calendar and began my search. I opened his email, my heart pounding with each click. I scanned his personal account first, looking for that damning initial. Nothing. He was too careful for that. I switched to his work email, a long shot, but I was desperate. I searched for K. The results flooded the screen dozens of emails about key cards, kitchen duty, and project kickoffs. It was useless. Then I remembered the photos. Mark was an avid photographer. His passion had cooled in recent years, but he still kept vast digital albums, all neatly organized on an external hard drive connected to his laptop. He'd told me he was digitizing old family photos. Another lie? I clicked open the drive. The folders were labeled by year. I started with the current one. It was mostly pictures of us, of our friends, of landscapes from our vacation to Italy. For a heart-stopping moment, I wondered if I had imagined it all, if I was having some sort of paranoid breakdown. But then I saw it. A folder hidden inside another folder labeled Architectural Renders. A folder with a single innocuous name, MISC. My hand was shaking so badly I almost couldn't click on it. The folder opened, and there she was. It wasn't just one picture. It was dozens, hundreds. A secret archive of their life together. There she was, laughing in the passenger seat of our car, the sunlight catching the gold flecks in her brown hair. There she was, holding a glass of champagne at the Gilded Sparrow, the same restaurant from the receipt, a sly smile on her face. Mark was in some of them, his arm around her, wearing a smile I hadn't seen on his face in years, a genuine, unburdened smile that made my chest ache. She was beautiful, of course, younger than me, with bright, clever eyes and a confidence that radiated from the screen. In one photo, they were standing in front of a quaint little cottage, the kind you see in magazines. It was the fishing trip. They were holding hands. I scrolled through the images, each one a fresh stab of a knife. I felt like a ghost, haunting the edges of my own husband's real life. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was in love with her. The evidence was undeniable. But who was she? There were no names in the photo data, no clues, just her face, a face I would now see in my nightmares. I was about to close the folder, unable to take any more, when I noticed something in the background of one of the photos. It was a selfie of them, taken in what looked like a coffee shop. Behind them, on a chalkboard menu, was a logo, a stylized dove carrying an olive branch, and underneath it the name of the shop, The Daily Grind. I knew that place. It was a small, independent coffee shop just a few blocks from Mark's office, the kind of place he'd never go to. He was a corporate chain coffee snob. This must be her spot. A plan began to form, cold and precise in my mind. The shock was hardening into a diamond-sharp resolve. I copied the best, clearest photo of her face onto a thumb drive. I saved the picture from the fishing trip, the one of them in front of the cottage. I saved the damning calendar entries. I put the receipt from his wallet in my purse. I was gathering my weapons. I closed the laptop, my movements swift and silent. I put his wallet back on the dresser exactly as I'd found it. I went into the living room and tidied up, erasing any sign of my frantic search. I was a phantom in my own home. As I finished, I heard the sound I had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. The sound of his keys in the front door. I froze, my back to the door, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. I had my evidence. I knew about the affair, the lies, the secret life, but I still didn't have a name. I didn't have the final piece of the puzzle. The door swung open and he stepped inside, a weary, theatrical sigh escaping his lips. "Clara, honey, I'm home," he called out, his voice thick with fake exhaustion. God, what a night. I turned around slowly, carefully arranging my face into a mask of placid sympathy. "Poor baby," I said, my voice dripping with an irony only I could understand. "It sounds awful. You must be exhausted." He dropped his briefcase by the door and walked towards me, his arms open for a hug. I braced myself. As he wrapped his arms around me, I inhaled, expecting the faint, cloying scent of another woman's perfume. But I smelled nothing, just his familiar scent, the one I used to find so comforting. He was clever. He had showered. He had changed. But he hadn't been clever enough. As he pulled away, I glanced down at his suit jacket and my blood ran cold. Clinging to the dark wool of his lapel, almost invisible against the fabric, was a single long strand of hair. It wasn't my color. It was a light, shimmering brown, glinting under the hallway light. The exact shade of brown as the hair of the woman in the photographs, and curled around it, impossibly, was a short, wiry, bright orange hair. A cat hair. We didn't have a cat. I had always wanted one, but Mark was terribly, unequivocally allergic. An orange cat hair. The detail was so small, so mundane, yet it screamed louder than any photograph or receipt. Mark's allergy to cats wasn't just a mild inconvenience. It was a full-blown, eyes swelling shut, can't breathe without an inhaler medical condition. We'd once had to leave a friend's party after 10 minutes because they'd gotten a new kitten. He wouldn't just avoid cats, he'd flee from them. Yet here was the evidence, a tiny orange thread woven into the fabric of his lie. It meant she had a cat, an orange one. And it meant that for her, he was willing to endure the watery eyes, the sneezing, the itchy hives. Or, and this thought was a cold sliver of ice in my heart, his allergy wasn't nearly as severe as he'd led me to believe all these years. Which was it? A love so profound he'd suffer for it, or another lie in a mountain of them? "You okay?" he asked, his brow furrowing with faux concern. He was looking at me, really looking at me, and for a terrifying second I thought my mask had slipped, that he could see the raging inferno of knowledge behind my eyes. I forced a smile, reaching up to pluck the hairs from his lapel in a gesture that I hoped looked casual, wifely. "Just a stray hair," I murmured, pinching the 2 strands between my thumb and forefinger before he could see them clearly. "You must be wiped. I saved you a plate, but I can heat it up in the morning if you're too tired to eat." "No, I'm starving," he said, the lie rolling off his tongue with practiced ease. He'd just eaten a $200 meal of scallops and champagne, but he was committed to the performance. "I'll just grab a quick shower and be right out." As the bathroom door clicked shut and the sound of the shower started, I moved. I walked calmly to the kitchen, the damning hairs still pinched between my fingers. I opened a small zip-top bag from the junk drawer, the kind used for spices or small craft supplies, and carefully placed the hairs inside. I sealed it and tucked it into my purse alongside the receipt and the thumb drive, a little collection of my husband's deceit. The next morning was a master class in theater. I woke up early, made coffee, and listened with feigned sympathy as he recounted the fabricated horrors of his late-night work session. He complained about Henderson's impossible demands and the incompetence of his junior colleagues. I nodded and made all the right noises, my mind a million miles away, replaying the images from the folder labeled MISC. "I'm just glad it's over," he said, taking a large gulp of coffee. "I think I might try to duck out a little early today. Maybe we can have a proper dinner tonight? My treat, to make up for last night." "I'd love that," I said, my voice sweet as honey. The audacity of it was breathtaking. He wanted to take me to dinner to apologize for a fake work emergency that was actually an anniversary dinner with his mistress. My rage, which had been a cold, hard knot in my stomach, began to thaw, turning into a molten, simmering lava. After he left for work, kissing me at the door and telling me he loved me, I put my own plan into motion. I called my boss and told her I had a sudden family emergency, a lie that felt both disgusting and strangely empowering. Then I got in my car and drove, not to my parents' house, but to the Daily Grind, the coffee shop from the photograph. The place was exactly as I'd pictured it, trendy, filled with the scent of artisanal coffee and the low hum of laptops and quiet conversation. I ordered a latte I didn't want and found a small table in the corner, a perfect vantage point from which to watch the door. I pulled out my laptop and opened the photo of her. I studied her face, memorizing every detail, the curve of her smile, the small mole just above her lip, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners. I was a hunter, and this was my blind. I sat there for hours. I watched students cramming for exams, freelancers typing furiously, and friends catching up over pastries. With every woman who walked through the door, my heart would leap into my throat, but none of them were her. By lunchtime, I was starting to lose hope. Maybe it was a one-time visit. Maybe she didn't live or work nearby. The thought of going home empty-handed, of having to face Mark at dinner with this gaping hole in my knowledge, was unbearable. Just as I was about to pack up, she walked in. The world seemed to slow down. She was even more striking in person. She moved with an easy grace, smiling at the barista behind the counter like they were old friends. She ordered her coffee, a large skim latte with 1 pump of vanilla, I noted, filing the detail away. And then she waited, tapping her foot to the indie music playing softly over the speakers. This was my chance. My heart was a jackhammer against my ribs. I had to do this. I had to know her name. I stood up, my legs feeling like jelly, and walked towards the counter, pretending to look at the menu. She grabbed her coffee, turned, and started walking towards my table, towards the exit. Our paths were going to cross. This was it. I took a deep breath, braced myself for the impact, and stepped directly into her path. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," I gasped as my shoulder connected with hers. Hot coffee sloshed over the rim of her cup, splashing onto her hand and the sleeve of her cream-colored sweater. "Ow! Oh, it's okay, it's okay." she said, shaking her hand and looking more startled than angry. She grabbed a handful of napkins from a dispenser. "It's not a big deal, really." "No, I am so sorry," I gushed, my voice an octave higher than usual. I wasn't looking. Let me buy you another one and pay for your dry cleaning." I was babbling, but I had her attention. Her bright, clever eyes were looking right at me. She gave a small, genuine laugh. "Honestly, it's fine. It was an accident." She dabbed at her sleeve. "Don't worry about it." She started to turn away. I couldn't let her go. "Please," I insisted, reaching into my purse. "I feel terrible. I'm Clara, by the way." I stuck out my hand, a gesture of peace. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, then took it. Her hand was warm, her grip firm. "Kate," she said, her smile returning. "It's nice to meet you, Clara, even under these circumstances." Kate. K. The final piece clicked into place. The sound of her name was like a bell tolling, signaling the end of my marriage. I held her hand for a moment too long, a jolt of something electric and awful passing between us. I had her name. I had her face. I had everything I needed. But as I pulled my hand away, my eyes dropped from her face to the tote bag slung over her shoulder. It was a canvas bag from a local veterinary clinic, Oak Ridge Animal Hospital, and embroidered neatly below the clinic's logo, below the smiling cartoon dog and cat, was her full name, Dr. Kate Sharma, DVM. My breath caught in my throat. I knew that clinic. It was our vet. She was the new doctor who had treated our golden retriever, Buddy, for a stomach bug just 3 months ago. The same vet Mark had insisted on taking Buddy to for every follow-up appointment himself, claiming I was too busy with work. He wasn't just having an affair, he had brought her into our lives, right under my nose. He had let this woman, his mistress, put her hands on our dog, Dr. Kate Sharma, our vet. The realization hit me with the force of a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs and leaving me dizzy with a vertigo of betrayal. It wasn't just that he was cheating, it was the sheer, calculated audacity of it. He had woven his secret life into the fabric of our shared one, letting his mistress tend to our beloved dog, a member of our family. The follow-up appointments he'd insisted on handling himself, the calls he'd made to the clinic just to check in, the casual mentions of the new vet who was really great with Buddy. It was all a lie, a carefully constructed stage for their affair. He hadn't just built a second life, he had brought it home. "Are you all right?" Kate's voice cut through the fog of my shock. Her face, the same face I'd seen laughing in photos with my husband, was now etched with genuine concern for me, a complete stranger who had just scalded her. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. "Yes, I'm fine," I stammered, pulling myself together. The molten lava of my rage was cooling, hardening into something else, a cold, terrifyingly calm resolve. The game had changed. This wasn't just about exposing an affair anymore. This was about dismantling a masterpiece of deceit, piece by painstaking piece. "I'm just so clumsy. Listen, I insist on paying for the coffee and your sweater. It's the least I can do." She tried to refuse, but I was relentless, pressing a $50 bill into her hand and refusing to take it back. I needed this transaction. I needed to stand there, in control, looking the woman who was sleeping with my husband in the eye, and perform an act of contrived kindness. It was my own sick piece of theater. I left her standing there, flustered and holding my money, and walked out of the coffee shop. I didn't look back. The dinner he'd promised was my stage. I spent the afternoon preparing, not the meal, but myself. I chose my outfit carefully, a simple black dress he'd always loved, one that made me feel powerful. I did my hair and makeup with meticulous precision. I was not a victim preparing for a confrontation. I was a queen preparing for an execution. When he walked in the door, he found the lights dimmed, candles lit on the dining table, and 2 glasses of our best wine poured. His favorite jazz station was playing softly. It was a perfect recreation of the Tuesday night he had thrown away for scallops and champagne with her. "Wow," he said, his eyes widening. "Clara, I thought we were going out." "I changed my mind," I said, my voice smooth as silk. I handed him a glass of wine. "I thought a quiet night in would be nicer, more intimate." He smiled, a genuine, relieved smile that made my stomach turn. He thought he was forgiven. He thought this was my apology for being distant. We sat down, and for a while, I played the part. I asked about his day. I let him talk about his work, nodding and smiling as he spun his web of mundane lies. I watched him. This man I had loved for more than a decade, and felt nothing but a profound, chilling emptiness. He was a stranger to me. I waited until he had finished his main course and was swirling the wine in his glass, a contented look on his face. "I met someone interesting today," I said conversationally, taking a delicate sip from my own glass. "Oh yeah? Who?" he asked, his attention only half on me. "A vet, actually. Her name is Kate Sharma. Dr. Kate Sharma. She works at Oak Ridge. Do you know her?" His hand froze, the wine glass halfway to his lips. The color drained from his face. I saw his Adam's apple bob as he swallowed hard. He placed the glass back on the table with a hand that was not quite steady. "The name sounds vaguely familiar," he said, his voice a low croak. He wouldn't look at me. He was staring at a spot on the tablecloth as if it held the secrets to the universe. "Really? Because she seemed to know Buddy quite well," I continued, my voice still light, still conversational. "She has this lovely tote bag from the clinic, and you know it's funny, she has an orange cat. Isn't that a coincidence, considering your terrible allergy?" Silence. The music on the speaker suddenly seemed incredibly loud, a funeral dirge for our marriage. His eyes flickered up to meet mine, and in them I saw it all: panic, fear, and finally the dawning horror of being caught. "Clara," he began, his voice barely a whisper. "Don't," I said, and the single word cut through the air like a razor. The silk was gone from my voice. All that was left was steel. I reached into the pocket of my dress and pulled out the small zip-top bag containing the 2 hairs. I placed it on the table between us, then came the receipt from the Gilded Sparrow. Finally, I took out the thumb drive and set it down next to the other exhibits, my little collection of his betrayal, laid out on the white tablecloth like evidence in a trial. "This is how it's going to go," I said, my voice low and steady, devoid of any emotion. "You are going to pack a bag with only your essentials. You will then leave this apartment and my life. Tomorrow you will call a lawyer, not ours, yours, and you will tell them you want to begin divorce proceedings. You will not contest a single thing. I get the apartment, I get the car, I get Buddy. You will agree to whatever alimony the court deems fair, and you will not fight me on it. Because if you do, if you push back in any way, this thumb drive—" I tapped it with my fingernail, the sound unnaturally loud in the silent room, "which contains a detailed history of your relationship with Dr. Sharma, including photos, calendar entries, and receipts, will be sent to the State Veterinary Licensing Board. I hear they take a very dim view of professionals who sleep with their clients' spouses. It's an ethics thing. I'm sure it would be quite damaging to her career. The one she's just starting." His face was a mask of disbelief and horror. He looked from the evidence on the table to my face, searching for the woman he knew, the wife he had taken for granted, the Clara who would have cried and screamed. She wasn't there. "You wouldn't," he breathed. "Try me," I said. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. I felt a sense of power I had never known before. It was a terrible, exhilarating feeling. "You built this life of lies, Mark. You brought her into our home, into our dog's life. You thought you could have everything, but you don't get to have her and keep me. You don't get to destroy my life and just walk away clean. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine, and I choose me. I choose my life, without you in it." He didn't speak. He just stared at me, the full weight of what he had lost, of what I had become, crashing down on him. There were no tears, no apologies, no desperate pleas. He simply stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor, and walked into the bedroom. A few minutes later, he emerged with an overnight bag. He walked to the door without looking at me, without a single word. He paused with his hand on the doorknob, his back to me. For a moment, I thought he might turn around, might say something, anything. But he didn't. He just opened the door and walked out, closing it softly behind him. The click of the lock echoed in the silent apartment, a final, definitive sound. It was over. I sat there for a long time, the candles burning down, the jazz playing to an empty room. I didn't cry. I just took a deep, shuddering breath, the first clean breath I'd taken in days, and blew out the candles one by one, plunging our history into darkness.